Welcome to Voyage Daily Tech, the most important news personalized for you every day, supported by Voyage.com.
Today we're sharing 5 stories. First, Nvidia CEO Jensen Huang calls Huawei a formidable competitor. We'll explain how US sanctions may have fueled the rise of its rival Ascent AI chips. Second, how one weak password let the ransomware gang Akira destroy a 158-year-old company named KNP, costing 700 jobs and leading to a £5 million ransom. Third, the Ether machine is going public, claiming ETFs from giants like BlackRock are flawed because they don't include the risky but rewarding strategy of staking. Fourth, Microsoft's urgent warning to disconnect SharePoint servers now as a zero-day attack lets hackers inside networks spoof identities and potentially manipulate financial markets. And fifth, after its $20 billion Adobe deal failed, Figma is going public with a $100 million Bitcoin bet as CEO Dylan Field embraces irrational moves. The CEO of Nvidia, the world's most valuable company, just called Huawei one of the most formidable technology companies in the world. And he didn't stop there. He warned that if US restrictions continue, Huawei will replace Nvidia in China. This is the same Huawei that was hit with crippling US trade sanctions, a move that halved its consumer business revenue to about $34 billion. The restrictions were supposed to hobble them. Instead, something else happened. The sanctions came as a shock to many in the US when Huawei released a smartphone with an advanced 5G chip made in China, something few thought possible. What's often overlooked about that chip, however, is that it was a strategically necessary but incredibly costly achievement. To get around the sanctions, Huawei's partner SMIC had to use older, deep ultraviolet or DUV lithography. This process is far less efficient than the cutting-edge EUV technology used by industry leaders like TSMC. Reports suggest that early on, the manufacturing yield rates were as low as 20%. While they've improved to nearly 40%, that's still far behind the 60% yields TSMC gets for similar processes. So while they proved it could be done, it came at a much higher cost and lower efficiency. According to one expert, the US export controls ironically acted like steroids for Huawei's AI development, pushing the company into the arms of the Chinese government and turning it into a national champion. While Nvidia's $4 trillion empire is built on its cutting-edge processors and its industry-standard CUDA software, Huawei is now fighting back with a full arsenal of its own. It has developed its own Ascent AI chips and its own CANN software system to directly challenge Nvidia's dominance. And actually, the software side is where the real battle lies. Nvidia's true power, its real stranglehold on the market, isn't just its chipsets, the CUDA software platform. It has a decade-plus head start and a massive, loyal community of developers. Huawei's CANN software is the challenger, but according to developers, it's still considered less mature, less stable, and more difficult to use. Huawei knows this, which is why they've launched aggressive programs to train thousands of developers, but overcoming CUDA's lead is a monumental task. But that's not the whole picture. The real turning point is what Huawei did next. The company recently unveiled a new system called the AI Cloud Matrix 384, linking hundreds of its own chips together. According to analysts, this system is able to outperform Nvidia's flagship system on some metrics. One report put it bluntly, Huawei isn't just catching up, it's redefining how AI infrastructure works. Now, Huawei is planning to export this entire AI playbook, its chips, its software, its data centers to emerging markets across the globe, repeating the same strategy it once used to build its telecom empire. So, the thing is, the implications here are huge. This isn't just about selling technology. This is part of a broader strategy, often called the Digital Silk Road, which could create a separate, non-Western AI ecosystem. As Huawei exports its full stack to countries in Africa, Latin America, and Asia, it's also exporting its technical standards and data governance models. This could lead to a future where the world is split between a US-aligned tech sphere and a China-aligned one, creating a kind of AI iron curtain and forcing nations to choose. So it's no longer a question of Huawei's survival. The real question is what this means for the global race for AI dominance. From that global tech rivalry, we now turn to a much more personal, but no less devastating corporate crisis. One weak password. That's all it took to destroy a 158-year-old company and put 700 people out of a job. the transport company KMP was brought to its knees by a ransomware gang known as Akira. After hackers got in, they encrypted everything and locked the company out of its own systems. The ransom note they left was chilling. If you're reading this, it means the internal infrastructure of your company is fully or partially dead. Let's keep all the tears and resentment to ourselves and try to build a constructive dialogue. The price to get their data back was an estimated £5 million. KNP didn't have it. The company collapsed. Now you might be thinking, what about cyber insurance? Interestingly enough, many policies have what are called sublimits. A company might have a £1 million policy, but the specific coverage for a ransomware payment could be as low as £25,000. It creates a false sense of security, and it's a gap that hackers are ruthlessly exploiting. But the most devastating detail, the company director, Paul Abbott, says he hasn't told the employee whose password was likely the weak link. His question, would you want to know if it was you? And you have to consider the human toll in a situation like this. The psychological toll on an employee who becomes the patient zero of a cyber attack can be immense. We're talking severe anxiety, guilt, and even symptoms of post-traumatic stress disorder. Research shows that over half of employees admit to making more mistakes when they're stressed, creating a vicious cycle. And on the legal side, well, the UK Supreme Court has actually clarified this. In a landmark case, it ruled that an employer is not automatically liable for a data breach caused by an employee, especially if they were acting outside their normal duties. This leaves the individual in a deeply vulnerable position, facing potential career setbacks and immense personal distress. Believe it or not, this is far from an isolated incident. Big names like M&S and Co-op have been hit, with Co-op confirming the data of all 6.5 million of its members was stolen. Last year, there were an estimated 19,000 ransomware attacks on UK businesses. The UK's National Cybersecurity Centre says it deals with a major attack every single day, but an insider admits there's a lot of attackers, there's not that many of us. The threat is escalating so fast that one official at the National Crime Agency predicts this will be the worst year on record for ransomware in the UK. Hackers are now using low-tech tactics like simply tricking IT help desks over the phone. What really brought this to a head is a shift in the hacker profile itself. Authorities are seeing a new wave of young cyber criminals, many coming from online gaming communities. They aren't necessarily master coders. Instead, they are experts in social manipulation, a skill honed in gaming culture where you learn to exploit system rules and influence other players. They use a tactic called blagging or social engineering. IT help desks are the perfect target because their entire job is to be helpful and solve problems, making them vulnerable to someone who can convincingly impersonate a panicked employee who has lost their password. This has led to a stark warning from Parliament's Security Committee. There is a high risk of a catastrophic ransomware attack at any moment. So what's driving this explosion in cybercrime? The money. The typical UK ransom demand is about £4 million, and research suggests a third of companies simply pay up. But officials warn this creates a vicious cycle, which feeds into a huge debate happening right now in government. Should ransom payments be banned altogether? The idea is that if you cut off the money, you starve the criminal ecosystem. But the counter-argument is terrifying. Would a ban simply accelerate the collapse of viable businesses like KNP, who are caught in the middle and might see paying as their only way to survive? As the National Crime Agency says, every victim needs to make their own choice, but it is the paying of ransoms which fuels this crime. Speaking of risk and devastating consequences, our next story is about a company that's not just facing risk, but actively embracing it as a business model. A new company is going public with a direct challenge to the biggest names in finance, claiming their brand new Ether products are fundamentally flawed. The company is the Ether Machine, and it's hitting the NASDAQ with a massive $64.5 million anchor investment. Its goal, to become the MicroStrategy of Ethereum, but unlike the new Ether ETFs that simply buy and hold the crypto, the Ether Machine has a completely different playbook. According to its co-founder, Andrew Keys, buying an ETF gets you exposure to Ether's price, but, quote, without access to the dividend. So, what exactly does he mean by dividend? Here's where it gets interesting. That dividend comes from a process called staking, where the crypto itself is put to work to generate yield. But, this isn't a risk-free dividend like you'd get from a blue chip stock. Actually, generating that yield involves taking on significant operational and financial risks. The biggest risk is something called slashing. if the validators, the computers doing the work misbehave or even just go offline, they can be penalized and a portion of the staked Ether is destroyed. Gone forever? Research shows there have been hundreds of these slashing incidents since staking began. So when a company promises you this yield, they are also managing a very complex and high-stakes technical operation in the background. Keys says the current ETFs don't do this, but his company will. And you can bet the big players have noticed, in a stunning move, BlackRock just filed with the SEC to include staking in its own popular Ether ETF, a sign the giants may now be playing catch-up. This situation presents a fascinating duality. The big ETFs launched without staking in the first place because of the SEC's cautious stance, worried it could make these products look more like investment contracts. So for BlackRock to now push for staking is a massive signal that they believe the reward outweighs the regulatory headache and they can't afford to be left behind. This isn't just a one-on-one fight, it's a full-blown race. The Ether machine is just one in an emerging cohort of companies all vying for the same crown. Other contenders are backed by titans like Peter Thiel and even Ethereum co-founder Joe Lubin. They're all betting that making Ether a productive asset is the real prize. And the implications here go way beyond just company profits. If a handful of these large publicly traded companies accumulate a significant percentage of all staked ETH, they could inadvertently centralize what's supposed to be a decentralized world computer. We're already seeing some concentration with entities like Coinbase and the staking protocol Lido controlling nearly 40% of all validator balances. This raises serious questions about censorship resistance and the very principles of the network. This battle is heating up just as Ether has doubled in the last 3 months, and Ether ETFs just logged a record-breaking $2.18 billion in weekly inflows. The market is absolutely on fire. So, in this new crypto gold rush, the central question is this: who will win? The players who just hold the asset, or the ones who make the asset work for them? We were just talking about the integrity of decentralized networks like Ethereum. Now, let's shift our focus to a massive security failure in the centralized world of corporate software. Microsoft has just issued a stunning warning to businesses and governments: disconnect your servers from the internet. Right now, the reason? Active, ongoing attacks are exploiting a previously unknown hole in its SharePoint software. This isn't a drill. It's a 0-day attack, meaning it caught everyone by surprise, targeting a vulnerability no one knew existed until attackers were already inside. And a 0-day like this is an incredibly valuable commodity on the underground market. You know, we're talking about a secret economy where exploits for major software can sell for tens of thousands or even millions of dollars. The buyers are exactly who you'd fear: nation states, private intelligence firms, and sophisticated criminal groups, all willing to pay a premium for a secret key to unlock the world's most secure systems. The scope of this is massive. We're talking about tens of thousands of servers at risk, with the primary targets being government agencies and businesses, the very institutions that use this software to share documents within their organizations. So you might wonder, in an age of cloud computing, why are these critical institutions even using servers they have to manage themselves? The truth is, for many government and business entities, it's about control. On-premise servers allow them to meet strict compliance rules, maintain total control over their data for sovereignty reasons, and customize the software in ways the cloud version doesn't allow. But that control comes with a price. They are responsible for their own security, and when a flaw like this appears, they are on the front lines. But this isn't just about stealing files. The vulnerability allows for something far more dangerous: spoofing. Essentially, an attacker can hide their identity, impersonate a trusted person or organization, and use that power to, and this is the critical part, potentially manipulate financial markets or agencies. However, if you zoom out, you'll see another layer of danger at play. The alert specifies this can be done by an authorized attacker. This isn't just a random hacker breaking in from the outside. This means the attacker may have already acquired legitimate credentials, perhaps through a phishing email, and is now operating from inside the system looking like a trusted employee. It's the digital equivalent of a spy walking around with a stolen ID badge, able to access and send out official-looking documents. Imagine an attacker appearing to be a legitimate source, sending signals that could crash a stock or deceive a government body. On a global scale, the potential for damage here is immense. Nation-state attackers could use a flaw like this to plant false intelligence directly into a government's document server, sowing discord and confusion. We've seen state-sponsored groups from Russia and China accused of similar tactics using cyber operations to destabilize rivals. This isn't just hacking, it's a weapon of geopolitical influence. The FBI has confirmed it is aware of the attacks. Microsoft is now coordinating with the Department of Defense Cyber Command and partners globally, racing to push out security updates. Their recommendation is clear: install the updates immediately, and if you can't, the advice is blunt. Take your SharePoint servers offline completely until you can. And when Microsoft says take them offline, the cost of that is staggering. For a large enterprise, taking a central collaboration tool offline means business grinds to a halt. Research shows that for most large companies, a single hour of downtime costs upwards of $300,000, with over 40% saying that cost is between $1 and $5 million an hour. This advice, while necessary for security, creates a massive business crisis. All of this leads to a disturbing question. With tens of thousands of servers exposed and attackers already on the move, how much damage has already been done? And who is behind an attack powerful enough to potentially fool the world's markets and governments? While Microsoft is scrambling to contain that crisis, another major tech player is celebrating a stunning comeback after a different kind of crisis of its own. Just over a year ago, Figma's massive $20 billion sale to Adobe was killed by regulators. Now, they're back with a vengeance. The design software giant is going public on the New York Stock Exchange, and it's not just aiming high, it's targeting a valuation of up to $16.4 billion. The company is looking to raise over $1 billion in its debut, a major milestone that signals the tech IPO market is roaring back to life. And to put this comeback into perspective, remember this. When the Adobe deal fell apart, it wasn't just a failure. Figma walked away with a $1 billion termination fee from Adobe. That's $1 billion in cash that they've used to fuel this aggressive independent growth strategy, and it's why they can come to the market with such confidence. But this isn't just a story about a tech listing. It's about a massive high-stakes bet that has social media buzzing. Buried in their filing is an absolute bombshell. Figma already has $70 million invested in a Bitcoin exchange-traded fund, and they have stated their intention to allocate another $30 million. That's a $100 million bet on Bitcoin from a design software company. Now get this, Figma isn't alone in this. This move is part of a much bigger trend of companies adding Bitcoin to their corporate treasuries. To put this in perspective, there are now over 60 publicly listed companies that hold a combined 3.2% of all Bitcoin. Think about a company like MicroStrategy. They hold over 500,000 Bitcoin, worth tens of billions of dollars. So for Figma, this is part financial strategy to hedge against inflation and part a massive signal to investors about their high risk, high reward, tech forward vision. And if that sounds like a wild move, the co-founder and CEO, Dylan Field, has publicly stated the company is prepared to take big swings and make decisions that may not seem immediately rational. Now, when we place his statement about not immediately rational decisions alongside their recent acquisitions, the strategy becomes clearer. He's signaling a plan to make acquisitions outside of their core business. For example, they recently acquired a company called Dynaboard, which helps bridge the gap between design and code. This is a move to build a much wider, more defensible platform, locking in users by offering more tools in one place. It's a long-term play. This strategy comes at a critical time. While Figma's revenue is up 46% and its net income has tripled, the company is also warning about a new threat on the horizon: artificial intelligence. In its own filing, Figma warns that new design tools driven by AI could make some of its own customers less reliant on its platform. But Figma isn't just waiting for this threat to arrive, they are actively integrating AI into their own products. Take their tool FigJam, which is used for brainstorming. They've already added generative AI features to help users generate and organize ideas. Their strategy seems to be about using AI to augment and assist designers, not replace them. After all, it's a clever way to turn a potential threat into a new feature and a competitive advantage. So you have this company, fresh off a failed acquisition, now going public with a massive valuation, making a $100 million bet on Bitcoin and openly embracing irrational moves, all while facing a potential existential threat from AI. It all leads to the final question. Is this a brilliant, unconventional strategy for market dominance, or a gamble that could backfire spectacularly?
That's it for today on Voyage Daily Tech. Follow, share, and stay tuned for daily updates coming your way tomorrow.